Are you willing to accept Christ's invitation to know Him more intimately, love Him more intensely, and follow Him more closely, and then go out into the world and live His good news? If you say yes, then you could be the 13th apostle. Join Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey, the odd couple of Catholic radio, as they ride the radio waves 2 by 2 to share the goodness, beauty, and truth of Jesus Christ and His church. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the 13th apostle.
Thomas Aquinas argued that we naturally know that a father is worthy of both reverence and obedience. Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the 13th Apostle. We explore the good, beautiful, and true of the Catholic faith, the Catholic Church, and especially her founder. All right, this is Tom Caffrey, and I'll say my co-host, he's going to sound a little different tonight. How you doing, Father Jim Hutchins?
Just fine, Tom. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for filling in. It was a last-minute sort of thing. Dan has an important family matter to attend to, so the options were just me or to have a guest. So I won, and I said I wanted a guest. I disagree with myself, Part of myself said, "You're going to do it," but no, I said, "No, I want to guess." So, thanks for doing this. You've been okay for the most part.
Yeah. I had an operation, a hernia operation, but I'm back. I have all my energy back, thank God.
See, when you get to a certain point in life, when you ask somebody how they're doing, the medical seems to be the first thing that comes up.
Well, everybody's been asking me, so because they know they're concerned. They're concerned, yeah.
Well,
so, but I'm, as I say, I'm a very happy priest. I roll with the punches. I enjoy what I'm doing. I love retirement. So I'm good. I'm good.
You're one of those people that retirement. We have to put the word retirement in quotes. Because some people might think that, well, Father Jim, he's just sitting back in his easy chair, maybe, popping a can or two, watching the game, just watching the days go by. Of course, you're doing nothing of the sort.
No, I love what I'm doing. I have a
very
teaching
active
ministry through the emails, and I'm involved in different groups, that I participate, or chaplain, so I'm
as Dan and I know very well, with your active role, very important role with our group, Sons of the Father, at Discovery House, the retreat house. So it's wonderful, and with part of it, we're taking advantage, and obviously I mean that in a good way, of your time and your goodwill, and knowing that you don't have a parish to run, you wouldn't be able to do all these things. So you went out to pasture, so to speak, but you broke free. You broke through the fence, and you've been out and about. So that's really good.
Yeah, when I retired, I had the idea that I wanted to continue to serve. In fact, when I moved into this community, I said I wanted to be a priest for my neighbors, and then of course I got involved in some parish activities, stuff like that. So it's part of my priesthood to serve, so, and I'm doing it.
All right, good. So here's a Miriam. We're gonna jump to this article Dan found, and this was in lifecraft.org. Life-craft.org, June 12th of this year, titled "Honoring Fatherhood and Imperfect Fathers" by John Cuddeback. And we had, Dan and I had interviewed John, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when his book came out, True Friendship. And so he's an observer and a commentator, thinker about matters in the culture, certainly from the standpoint of family and in the context of faith. Teaches at Christendom College. And so, made me think of some of the things that I read in his article. I went into the Merriam-Webster dictionary and searched take for granted. And it defines it as to assume something as true, unquestionable, or to be expected. And so, in fact, Jim, I know you would think this some similar and same things as I do with growing up. There were certain things that we took for granted. And you can kind of twist that phrase into a negative, but obviously with the definition, it's not something that's negative. To assume something is true, unquestionable, or to be expected. So you're not really thinking that much about it because you expect the sun to come up. You expect to have, if you turn the faucet on, that we're going to have clean water come out of it. Now, obviously, a lot of people don't have clean water. And in the context of this article, a lot of people don't have fathers that are honorable and therefore don't have fathers worthy of being honored. So that's what, and of course, there's so much confusion in our culture in terms, again, taking for granted. Who would have thought just weeks ago? I mean, that I'm having a little tongue-in-cheek with weeks ago, but in January of this year, in a school system, in Minnesota, the public schools, charter schools are required to have, and they passed legislation to this, required to have menstrual products in both sex restrooms. Now, that's not something that we would have taken for granted. We would have taken for granted the opposite, that they would not be in there. So the idea of honoring, I'm glad Cutterback put in his title, and imperfect fathers, because that's all of us. I don't know why he put and.
That's what I was thinking. It's and we have different gradations of imperfect.
Good. That's a good point. Elaborate.
There's a point where you can't honor a father who is so imperfect, because no father is perfect. That's not part of the qualifications. Fatherhood is what perfects men. You don't start out with, a perfect score. You learn along the way and you make mistakes, but you correct them and you learn and you grow, But some fathers, unfortunately, have had, a bad experience with their own father, and they don't know what being a father is supposed to be all about, and they may have been abused, or or the father may have been emotionally absent or physically absent, and so they're at a loss, They're at a big loss when they become a father,
A big loss indeed, and it's. I love that expression you just gave, which fatherhood perfects men. So there's no perfect fathers, but the fatherhood, of course, if you're intentional about that, about wanting to be that, then that's your. If you aspire to that, as I was, you aspire to being a good father, a good dad. As a phrase it goes. Most men can become fathers very easily, but it's a lot harder to become a dad than it is a father, in the sense of biological versus formative. And so that's a wonderful expression that I never heard, but it makes perfect sense. And the aspirational makes me think of our founding fathers and the documents that they crafted. These are aspirational, in order to form a more perfect union. These are aspirational. We're not there. Wherever there is, there our goal is, what we aspire to. The goal that we aspire to reach is being a good father. Now, we're talking about, that word father encompasses more than just a biological father. We have you in this conversation, the spiritual father. You have your, certainly in our context, you have a bunch of sons, and you mentor them, you minister to them, to us, and I include myself in that. And there's the idea of who can become a father. It's a big tent. It's a bigger tent than just somebody who is that biological man. And I don't know whenever in your life as a priest you started to have the greater sense that, well, yes, I'm not just called father, I am father. Do you have any sense as to when it really sunk in with you?
Well, I did have the experience of fathers, what other biological fathers have, that I was there to work, to provide for people and my sheep. And after about 10 years, I said, there must be more to this than just providing. It must be something more. And to make a long story short, it was I gradually accepted the fact that my job as a father was to share with others what my father had done for me. Not only my biological father, but my Father in heaven and Christ as a father. He died for my sins, and that was what I was to share with others. And that's I think when I became more a father. And I think other men probably have that same transition. You think this is not just about providing. There's more to it. You're sharing who you are, who you have become. And
that's a great point. You are sharing who you are, some of your essence. It's that relationship. You're not just providing food, let's say, whether that's, you're not just providing, in your case, in any priest's case, you're not just providing the sacraments. You could, without saying anything else, just go through the ritual of the sacrament, let's say of confession and reconciliation, and do that and say nothing from let's say a pastoral standpoint. But to me, that is like what you just said, that it wasn't just providing for let's say the necessities, if you will, in terms of we're going to, just so you're not starving, I'm going to give you put enough food on the table, or you're going to be there's this relationship, father son, father daughter, and I'm thinking of a dear friend of mine and ours who has no biological children, and I know other men like this as well, but I don't know anybody quite like him with the circumstance in which he found himself well into adulthood, and with an infant, and it's been, I'm going to guess, somewhere around 10 years, and he's had such a formative effect on this little girl that, as far as I'm concerned, he could and should accept the acknowledgement on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, a blessed Father's Day.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and I think that in his secular way, like with your clerical way.
I don't like the word secular. I think natural might be a better term. It is, God created us male and female, and the two become one flesh. And this is part of nature. That we generate life.
It is, but
every man is called to be a father. In some way.
That's the potential. Exactly, that's the potential. Now, in his case, he doesn't have any biological children, but whatever, and you don't either. And so now we've got 3 types of fathers, but all 3 are fathers. They have fatherhood. They have father essence. This is the potential that we all have. That men have. Just like all women have the potential. Even if, let's say, some women can't bear children for some medical reason, or they don't find the right man to have as husband, their potential as mothers, they have that instinct. I think Pope John Paul II wrote very eloquently, like he always does, sometimes in a very heady way too, about this potential that all women have to be motherly, even if they're not biological mothers. And actually, this man's wife that I'm thinking about, this friend of mine, his wife, does have that. She demonstrates that. They actually have 2 young children in their lives. So it's a fascinating thing. How do we aspire to fulfill what we actually don't know is within us? And I think that the only way we can find is to intentionally, take that step forward. We don't know exactly where we're going to end up, but as we move forward, certainly as you've done, you've learned more about yourself, your faith, with the work you've done as a priest, as a father, in quote unquote retirement, retirement from being part of a parish. And you wouldn't have known this if all your experiences lead you to here, and you did what you thought was right. You've told some humorous stories, about being shown the door, so to speak, at isn't that, the English language allows such facility with conveying meaning. If we can say it sounds so pleasant. You were shown the door. Somebody held the door open for you. I didn't finish the rest of that, where they put their foot in your back and shoved you out.
Well, part of being a father is, for me, was, it's not to think of yourself only, but to think about, others. So I've been through it several times, so I'm not too, turned off by it. I still want to serve. I still want to.
All right. Well, let me jump in there. Hold on. Now, this is beautiful, and this is coming out spontaneously, naturally. Thomas Aquinas, he said, "So nature provides that there are fathers. For a father, by his very nature, is a man who looks not to his individual good, but to the good of others." You just said that.
Yeah, and I think serving is for my good.
Yes.
There's meaning, to my life. No matter how successful or unsuccessful I am, the desire to give yourself to others and to help them, serve them in whatever way they need. That's what life is all about. That's what fatherhood is all about.
Yeah, I think there's in my book, A Boy for All Seasons, but a Man, there I wrote about a researcher, a psychologist, last name Ronner, actually I don't know whether it's Ronner or Roner, but it's Ronald Roner out of the University of Connecticut. And in his, he evaluated, this is going over quite a period of time, more than 500 studies about father's role, parents' role in raising children. And I'm going to quote him now. we're finding that not only are fathers influential in, I'm putting this parentheses, in the raising of children, sometimes they have more influence on kids' development than moms. Behavioral problems and overall adjustment are all more closely linked to a father's rejection of his son than to any rejection by a mother's. It's knowing that kids feel loved by their father is a better predictor of young adults' sense of well-being, of happiness, of life satisfaction than knowing about the extent to which they feel loved by their mothers. So I remember being floored when I read that, because we've been through so much since the 60s with feminism, and our fathers necessary. And there are multiple.
Well, that's communist. The communist, Karl Marx said, both are interchangeable. He wanted to do away with family. He wanted, his purpose was equality. Everybody should be equal. And mother or father or two mothers, or it didn't matter. They're both equal. So that's the source of a lot of what is going on in here.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think of my father, and actually, I want to ask you in the time we have left. So I'd rather hear what you have to say from your experience. We've got about 2-3 minutes left. Tell us about your experience with your dad.
Well, my big experience was. I was a good kid. I was a pious kid. The only time he spanked me was one time they told me to go to the store, and I said no, and I got a spanking. But that was it. It was always a good relationship. And when I had my call to the priesthood in 8th grade, I eventually had my mother. I was closer to my mother, and I shared it with her, and then. I obviously had to ask my father's permission, and I did. And he gave it to me, but it was he never ever told me. And he used to write me long letters in the seminary.
Oh, so you're a chip off the old block then.
And he never ever hinted at the fact that he was so disappointed not to have grandchildren.
But he wasn't disappointed. Hold on. He wasn't disappointed in you. He was just disappointed in the fact that he had no grandchildren.
Yeah, he was disappointed not to have grandchildren. He wasn't disappointed in me. He was the happiest guy on the block, when I got ordained. So I never even thought of it until one of my cousins said, "Why your father was disappointed?" Disappointed? What do you mean? But that raised him in my eyes even higher, because his sacrifice was as great as mine, and that's an indelible memory with me. He kept that to himself. He never burdened me with it. But he sacrificed.
That's heroic.
Yeah, it is heroic. The ordinary, that ordinary sacrifice was extraordinary. I think we sometimes miss out on that. These ordinary things that good fathers do are really extraordinary. And my thought is, I hope I've sired enough spiritual children for him and mom to play with in heaven. Hopefully that's taking place. But that's an indelible memory of my father.
Yeah, so, we'd like to be able to take, I'll wrap it up by saying this, we'd like to be able to take the honorable, virtuous fatherhood, take it for granted, but obviously we can't, because as we said in the beginning, these are aspirational goals. You'd think it's okay, it's natural, we're going to have a child. So again, whether it's our own biological children or somebody else, somehow these children are brought into our lives, and we're just, because it's natural. Well, you know what? There's a lot of things, if you're an observer of nature has a lot of stuff that we would say, yeah, that's natural, but I don't want any part of it. I don't want to be mauled by this animal. I'm not going to, run around and poison ivy. It's natural. No, there's things that, of course, the biggest part of that is that human beings have will. Unlike those other examples, there's no will in poison ivy. It just is. Animals run by instinct, but we have will. And so often we don't exercise that will properly, or it's disordered. But with more men like you, Father Jim Hutchins, you help us properly order ourselves to be virtuous men. Personally, I'm so grateful for you and your spiritual guidance in my life over these last few years. And I know I speak on behalf of others. Father Jim, we are...
But I get the same from you. Yeah, meeting fathers and seeing what they go through and seeing their fidelity and sacrifice. It works both ways. But thank you for the compliment.
You're welcome. You did a great job filling in for Dan. Dan, I miss him. But one way I know you did a great job, because you snuck in the last word there. You carried on the long tradition of Dan Duddy getting in the last word. What's the last word, Father Jim? See, now you're speechless. That's a first. Yeah. I think that's the first that I've ever noticed you to be speechless.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And by the way, you said your father wrote you long letters. Now I know where your letter writing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
God rest him.
Like father, like son.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. All right. Well, we have, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Angelus, and then your prayer intentions with Peter and Jemmy. WQPHradio.org. Thank you for your support always, and God bless all. Father Jim, thank you. God bless you there, brother.
God bless you too. Thank you again. God bless. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to the 13th Apostle with Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey. For more information on Dan, visit his website at www.danduddy.com or email dcduddy@gmail.com. Tom's website is faithpilgrims.com or email trcaffrey@faithpilgrims.com. How about you? Will you be the 13th Apostle?